Yes guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to ShootOut. The international break has been long. It's been hard, but Premier League football is back this weekend and there is times to be worried for certain football fans. Everton, you're probably worried because you've seen the Premier League table. You're no longer mid-table. You're in the relegation zone. You've been deducted 10 points. And if you're a Chelsea fan and a Man City fan, bloody hell knows what is coming for us next. But we're going to talk about that today. Big Eunice, how have you enjoyed the international break, first and foremost? I'm sure it's very similar to me. We just don't need it anymore, do we?
Mate, I'm dying. Literally, like at this point, you know, every every international break that comes along, yeah, it's like mood swings. Some go quickly and very fast, and it's like you didn't see it and you're okay. And then some drag on, and it feels like you're going through 5 weeks of torment. When look, this one is one of those. I've had enough. And England didn't help the cause yesterday. A 1-1 draw against North Macedonia, for goodness sakes. So yeah, no high spirits for England going forward. I've had enough of the internationals. I need my club football back. And thank goodness we're not going to get an international until March, is it? I mean, stay gone.
We got 4 months now. We're in the clear.
Thank God for that. So bring on the sunshine.
Bring on the sunshine. Unless you're a fan of Everton, who've been deducted 10 points. It is for one charge for a breach of FFP, I think it is, for overspending. Yep. A 10-point deduction. I'm going to throw out some maths for you here, just so that we can understand kind of how this works, right? Everton have been deducted 10 points for one breach. Yeah. Manchester City have 115 breaches of the rules, which means, technically speaking, they should have a minus 1,150 point deduction. A lot of people have been saying, well, if it's as easy as that, then why are Man City just not being punished? The problem is, it's not as easy as that. The rules being breached, this is how I see it anyway, which is kind of like, it's going to annoy some people because this means we actually got to think about things. When you breach one rule, there's only one thing that needs to be looked into. So therefore, as a result of the identification of that, one punishment. With 115, there is a whole host of time, energy, effort, eyes, ears, brains that need to go into this before a punishment can even be calculated. So I don't know how you feel about this. I would love to see Man City just like dissolved off the face of planet Earth. But there's also the argument that if that was to happen, then what happens to the Premier League? If the big boys all of a sudden get penalised and demoted, relegated, whatever it may be, then English football is screwed. Why do you think Everton fans are feeling hard done by? Is it fair? Like, there's so many angles that we can approach this from here, and I've just waffled. But what are your thoughts?
I mean, first and foremost, that calculation was actually quite hilarious. So if that is the case, if that is how that's going to be done, then respectfully, and I'm trying to look at the football pyramid right now, but Man City should realistically find themselves in, I don't know, the Southern Premier Central Division of the 7th tier of the football pyramid. I mean, I'd be looking forward to seeing, Jack Grealish do a madness over in those sort of places. So, this brings us to the whole point of, is this punishment fair in the first place? It's actually quite crazy that, Everton have overspent by 20 odd million and it's one charge and that's it. And they've been hit with a 10-point deduction. And they run the risk now of more punishment if the other football teams that were affected by relegation, whilst Everton survived, do launch a claim and win their claim, which I think is going to be Burnley, Leicester, Leeds. So they do have a case when you think about it. So it's not looking good for Everton whatsoever. This could lead to an administration. But when you're looking at one charge, and it's just by overspending that much, 10 points, then what does it mean for City and Chelsea and everyone else? Now, the cases are completely different. You just mentioned, and I know people are trying to, compare Man City to Everton when in realistic terms, it's apples and pears. 115 charges are not going to be resolved tomorrow. So respectfully, for Man City, I think they're okay for now. However, this could be one hell of a storm when it does hit. And when it does hit, I expect maybe in a couple years or something, because 115 charges is a lot to uncover. It's a lot to get through. And look, we don't even necessarily know what those 115 charges are all related to. I'm sure it's not just all like overspending. Probably isn't overspending. I'm sure there's sponsorship stuff. There's other sort of regulations and rules we don't know about. It's a lot of charges. So we have to wait and see on Man City's front. But I have to be honest, I don't think it's looking good for Man City when the storm does hit in maybe a couple years' time. So we'll wait and see. And as for Chelsea, we don't know where that's going. So we have to wait and see if we get charged first.
I know. I think the thing with Chelsea is I've seen some really interesting takes on this one. And again, people are going to, because this is a neutral topic that affects multiple clubs, and because Chelsea are involved, obviously, like if Chelsea don't get fined, charged, relegated, point deducted, whatever, I'm going to be over the bloody moon. But then again, I'm also not a police officer. So my duty as a Chelsea fan isn't to make sure that everything is fair in love and war. I don't care. I just don't want Chelsea in trouble. But the issue I do have with this whole thing is that the issues that were actually raised by Chelsea when the due diligence process was being undertaken by the new ownership. They have raised some of these payments that were made during the Abramovich era. And they've basically done that, I guess, because they knew what was happening to Manchester City. They knew that the Premier League, the FA, whatever it may be, all of these different bodies of regulations piss off. They realised that what has happened to City will eventually come back and bite Chelsea. So they've gone and been honest about it. They've been like, look, this is what we've seen. This is what's happened. But because of what happened under Abramovich, do you think it's fair that Chelsea as a football club get punished retrospectively when the ownership, who are currently the ones who will then financially suffer from the club, they had no say in this whatsoever? Like, well, I don't know if that's just my Chelsea bias coming in, but like, surely this has to be up to, it's got to be an oversight from those who make these decisions, who could be like, well, actually, we should have just been better at our jobs. A bit like refereeing decisions, like, the amount of refereeing decisions that have gone against a certain team, like now we've got VAR, what, is everyone going to start suing? Is Frank Lampard going to sue for the goal that wasn't a goal in the 2010 World Cup? Like, when do all of these retrospective things, we have to just not draw a line, but what is, I don't understand. I don't get it.
Yeah. With Chelsea's case, the weird thing is we initially heard that the current Chelsea ownership declared or self-declared that they uncovered something a little off in relation to the Willian and Samuel Eto'o transfers, right? And that was self-reported. But if I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure if it was Matt Law's article in the Telegraph or if it was somewhere else. But that initial news came out 3-4 weeks ago, I think, from now. And then last week we had the rest that had come out. And apparently the current Chelsea ownership are unaware of those. So not even they know. So this has come from a leak. So this is where it's kind of 50-50. The current Chelsea ownership have found what they found and they've self-reported. And then there's other things that have popped up which they're completely unaware of. Now, for the current Chelsea ownership, now if that is the case, because again, it's articles and it can never be 100% completely certain. Only the people in the know will know if that's the case. But that is what was reported, and that's what we know, right? So if that is the case, for the current Chelsea ownership, realistically, one way or another, they didn't have anything to do with any of this, right? So when you look at it from that perspective, do they deserve any punishment? No. It does bring to question as to why they got rid of basically everybody when they walked in, because that is really not normal. And you got to be a bit crazy to do something like that, to walk into an organisation and just get rid of everybody, including the groundsman and the cafeteria staff. Everyone got chopped. was this the reason? Did they smell something a little off and think if we're going to walk in, we're going to have to clean house first? Maybe. Again, I'm not saying if that's the case. I'm just saying from the way that I've observed the situation, that's my personal opinion. It could be. But if this is the case now with the current Chelsea ownership walking in and having to pay the consequences, realistically, that's not fair. However, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, for the Premier League or for any other governing body, they're going to look at it and go, look, we're not looking at the current ownership. We're just looking at Chelsea as a football club, right? Chelsea as a football club have benefited and got into a situation where they are right now based on what they did in the past. And as a result, they need to be punished. That's the way they're going to look at it. That I don't agree, right? But that's the way they're going to look at it. So can I see Chelsea avoiding this?
Can you not say that maybe when Abramovich had the club taken away from him, Chelsea's greatest ever owner, you can argue, for sure.
Yeah.
When Chelsea had, at the end of the day, like Chelsea Football Club had nothing to do as a football club with what was happening between Russia and Ukraine. So if this is the case, then was Chelsea's punishment Roman Abramovich is no longer at the club anymore?
Well, I'll tell you this. And this is where I think it all stems to. And I don't want this to get political, but with the sanctions that Chelsea had under Roman Abramovich, right? How is it that when Chelsea got literally put under sanctions and then under investigation, and the entire accounts of the football club were not just frozen, seized, but were looked into, were pinpointed on every single level as to what might be wrong, what might be going to Russia, what could be this and what could be that? How is it that everything was completely looked through and they missed all of this? Because if at that time they were actively looking for anything they could find to put against Roman Abramovich, they would have found all of this that we're being alleged to now, and they would have put it to him. Easily, because that would have helped their case, but they didn't. So what work were they doing when they were looking and scouring through all of our accounts, trying to find every single little thing, and they didn't find all of this? But now they do? Or not necessarily the government, but now the Premier League, and there's leaks and whatnot. Where was all this at the beginning? So that's the inconsistency that I want to focus on, because it just shows that they're incompetent in terms of what they're actually doing or what they're trying to do. So as a result, I don't. This shows to me I don't know where this is going. This could be an allegation or an investigation that could just fizzle out. Or it could end up going somewhere where Chelsea get charged. I have no idea, but it's really bad from the people that were initially carrying the sanctions, who didn't find any of this. Crazy.
I mean, the way I see it, bro, I agree with you. Like, why now is all of this coming into fruition? But at the same time, like, it doesn't take a genius. It doesn't take a fair weather football fan, for example, someone who just like pops in and out the game, will watch if it's on TV, will read the newspapers, see the back pages, they get their understanding of football from that. A fair weather football fan would look at the way that spending has changed in football in the last 20 years and be like, well, isn't this a little bit odd? And as a result of all of that, there's one of the big winners here is obviously the amount of money that comes in for football clubs from the television deals. As the sport gets bigger in a globally expanding technological market, a broadcasting market, then as a result of that, is it going to be a case of the Premier League understand that it is your Chelseas, your Manchester Uniteds, your Manchester Cities, your Arsenals, your Liverpools, not including Tottenham in any of this bracket. When these clubs are playing in the Premier League, this is where all of this money comes in from. People don't care, no offence, about your Burnleys, about your Southamptons last season. This isn't what makes the Premier League worth billions upon billions upon billions every year. So, are we going to see an outcome from this entire situation where Man City get off scot-free to an extent, or like they get, I don't know, a couple of Premier League titles taken away from the past? Because relegating Man City to the Conference North is a disaster for English football. It is. I'd love it. And putting Chelsea in the same boat is a disaster for English football and everything that has been built in the past 30 years. So I could absolutely see this happening. And I think you're right. I think at the moment, we don't really know. It's going to take a long time for whatever resolution is going to come to actually be found, publicised, and then sanctioned.
Yeah.
I just think they've set a precedence now, but like, is that going to be, right, well, we'll punish Everton because we can get away with that and we don't have to do much work for it because they still broke the rules. Chelsea and Man City, no, it's too much going on. We don't know what's fair. We don't really understand. Let them go.
Wait, you see, this is the thing, because now this whole 10-point deduction that Everton got has set a precedent. It has. So they got to be consistent. Everton in their statement themselves said that we're going to be paying attention to other cases as well and seeing how those are going to go, because they want consistency. And they're right. You know, if they've been punished the way they've been punished, if there's things that have been committed that's worse by other clubs, surely the punishment should be worse. So they're going to be paying attention to that. But when it comes to City and Chelsea, as you've said, the magnitude of these clubs are so big that I don't see relegation being an option. I've heard a couple of guys that are on the legal side of football that have been saying that, no, realistically, if we're talking, by the letter of the law, and if we're going to be consistent, then relegation should be an option and could be the only option if there has been a level of, let's say, deception or lies that have been committed by these football clubs. The punishment that's on the table should be relegation. That's from the legal end of things. So that's kind of concerning in and of itself. But as you've said, when you look at the Premier League, they can't relegate Man City or Chelsea. They just can't, because they're going to be shooting themselves in the feet. And if we're talking about, dodgy payments and dodgy backhanders and brown envelopes and all of that, you best believe it happens on every single level everywhere. And the Premier League probably included in that, right? So when you're looking at, they're going to be looking at their interests first, and it wouldn't be serving their interests to, I would say, relegate Chelsea, let alone relegate Man City. Man City are the top dogs at the moment. It would be crazy to put them in the Championship. But there's 115 charges, and this is where you have to be real. 115 charges. What's going to be the punishment? Or if Chelsea are found on multiple counts of wrongdoing, what's going to be the punishment? Personally, if I have to guess, I reckon a points deduction, maybe a little more than Everton's, just to keep Everton a little quiet. Maybe something 15, 20 points perhaps. And then a big financial hit. Maybe something, I don't know. We're talking, millions in terms of fines. Maybe that might hurt the club a little bit. And then I think they're going to leave it at that. But relegation, I just don't think that's going to be an option. Even though Everton and other people might look at it and think yes, but I don't think that's going to be an option.
I just think the whole thing is a flipping joke, to be honest. Like, you made your bed, you let people come in, take over football clubs, you let a Russian oligarch take over Chelsea in 2003, you've let flipping states come in and take over clubs, you've allowed all of the broadcasting revenue to boost the revenues of every single football club significantly, and now, based on the fact that you can't even referee your own football matches in your country, now you want to control all of the business side of things within the realms of fair play. I think we've just got it wrong for far too long. And unfortunately, repercussions are going to come. Some harsher than others, some fairer than others, some unfairer than others. I just think the whole thing is a flipping joke. And that isn't just because Chelsea have been punished. I mean, we did get punished. Roman Abramovich had the club taken away from him. People weren't getting paid. No one knew what was going to happen. And we had to end up selling the club to Todd Boehly. And what's happened to that money as well? I just think the whole thing is a farce.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's still sitting in a bank account, not moved. Now, I don't know if they're trying to generate as much interest as possible from it. Maybe. But it's still sitting there. So they've not done exactly what they said they were going to do with that initial money that came from the initial sanction. You're completely right. The whole thing is a farce. And look, if they were going to try and be squeaky clean on every single level, then you best believe there would be sanctions going off left, right and centre. Because at that level, things are not clean. It's as simple as that. And there's always something dodgy going on. Some done in a more diplomatic manner. Some done in a more, user-friendly manner, if you want to call it that. Where it looks all nice, on surface value, but the devil's in the detail. You would find other clubs doing something, at least on a minimal level, something a little dodgy. So yeah, it's crazy. We'll see what happens. But what I do want to stress is that this isn't going to all be made tomorrow. I do think this is going to take time, especially for Man City. So in terms of transfer business, if we're talking as a transfer ban, maybe could be a punishment for Man City and for Chelsea. I don't think we're going to see something for maybe the next couple of years for Man City, maybe for the next... Maybe by the end of the season for Chelsea, perhaps into next season we might see something, but for now I think it's going to be cushy clean. So we'll wait and see what happens.
I'll make a prediction right now. When Chelsea come 5th, we'll get a point deduction, which will be the amount of points needed to put us into 6th for the Champions League spot for the beginning of next season. It'll be like, oh, you know what? We've spent the last 3 years thinking about this, and we've decided yesterday 7 points is what we're going to deduct from Chelsea. Watch this space. That's the last thing I want to say about it. I think the whole thing is an absolute farce. I actually feel for Everton fans. I get it. Like, when you see City technically getting away with it right now, Chelsea technically getting away with it right now, you've been punished. You're having a good season so far compared to what people thought. Now you're back in the relegation zone again. Don't worry about it. There are teams at the bottom of this league that don't spend any money, and they're absolutely dog poo, mate. So they're all getting relegated. Don't worry, Everton fans. You're not going down. And yeah, if you're a Chelsea fan, we've been used to playing in League 2, League 1, where my dad was going to the games. So that's it from me, Eunice. Anything you want to add on this topic, this debate?
Well, look, for Everton, I don't think they're going down. I think they'll be okay, at least in terms of league position. What comes from this whole thing could be a different story, but I think they'll be okay. I do think that 10 points for that sort of breach is, as a first offence, probably too much. Maybe a financial hit would have done them okay. If you're going to deduct points, maybe a couple, not 10. And yeah, we'll see what happens. But Everton, I do feel for them. And yeah, this could be the beginning of a downward spiral in the long run for them. But I feel for them, and I think they'll be okay. I don't think they'll get relegated. They will survive. They're playing well, so as long as they keep that up, they'll be fine. And I think there's other teams that are performing worse. So we'll see how it all ends up. And for Chelsea, Man City, watch this space, because I don't feel like it's going to come anytime soon. But when it does come, boy, we'll be here. We'll be here ready for the storm, and we will be analysing it here on ShootOut. So make sure you're hitting that subscribe button.
We'll call it Hurricane Shootout when it happens.
That is it.